Talking tactics tonight. It was a wet old night in Terang. I'm catching up with Michael Stanley. Firstly, Mick, thank you very much for joining me, mate.
No worries at all, mate. Good job.
We're on a little bit of a time constraint because there's a game of football starting. What time officially does it start?
10 past 7, mate. We should be able to rush in by then. But the way the Magpies have been playing, I don't know whether I should be watching.
I'm not even going to go there, mate. I'll leave that to you. I'm a Carlton man, so we're in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah, my word.
It was an eventful night the other night at Terang. There was a fair bit of rain, bit of trying conditions. You had a reasonable night. You could have had a lot better night, really, the way it all panned out. But the main one I wanted to talk about was Soho Bollinger, firstly, mate. But very quickly, in the first race, Single Tree Road, I've spoke to you a few times about her, and she's just a short course horse, basically, isn't she? And with the conditions of the track and that, you drove her accordingly?
Yeah, exactly. Look, I think as we headed down to Terang, I think I spoke to you before, and they said that they missed most of the rain, which I'm not too sure how that happened, because I was going around in the warm-up on Single Tree Road, and there was a turtle crossing the track, so they definitely had plenty of rain there. But look, we went back and over the 2200, she's just not quite as sharp as she is over the mile, but probably actually should have won the race. I reckon I actually stuffed that one right up. I grabbed hold and went back around them halfway down the straight and took away her momentum. I reckon if I had sort of stayed where I was and twisted inside, I would have given them a real shake. So probably my worst ride for the night, that's for sure.
The conditions can do that, though, to people. I know when Bendigo, the Saturday night Bendigo had, I think there was a few drivers probably erred. I know I've said it a couple of times, Dave Miles definitely erred on Monk's horse early on in the night. It can cloud your judgment a little bit, though, when you're getting kicked back and you're not sure exactly what's going on in front of you.
That didn't even worry me too much, Paul. The track was actually in, for all the rain they had, the track was actually in really good condition. Underfoot, it was really hard. I just thought if I went to the inside, sometimes the horse that goes to the sprint lane runs down a bit further and covers you up. But as it worked out, grabbing hold, I had to, Miss McGonigal wasn't quite up level with Idle Times, and I had to grab hold half a length to actually come back around it. And I just gave away too much ground by doing that. I should have took my chances and went to the inside, and, as it worked out, Torres Saint didn't go right down to the fence. I mean, it may well have if I had went there, but I just took away all my momentum by doing what I did. So I probably should have taken the percentage play and went to the inside. But as I said, I stuffed that one up, and she'll go around in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely, and look out for her over the short course events. Soho Bollinger, mate. He's a very exciting horse. This horse. He's a big lad, and he is actually very, very green. And you just got to watch. Basically, I haven't started the video just yet. I just want everyone to watch halfway, or not even just entering that first turn out of the mobile. He draws barrier 6. He's out wide, and he just goes, has a good old fashioned look at the mobile, which you alluded to, didn't he, Mick?
Yeah, he did. Because of the wet weather, the mobile tried to get away and pull up really quickly, and it pulled up just past the winning post. And because a lot of the horses inside me tried to get forward, I was still 4 and 5 wide into the first 10. I was very close to the mobile, and he had a really good look at it. And lucky I was sort of well aware of what he's like, because he could have ducked in really quickly. I nearly hit the wheel inside me. So, and that's what he's like. As you said, he's a big baby. He still hasn't got his head around all that sort of stuff just yet. So we were lucky to bypass that.
We just went past it. You actually timed it to perfection, and you can see you just missed Rodney Barker's wheel. And as you said, he's a big baby. When he raced at Bendigo, did the form, he'd won at Bendigo before. He had a good look around. He's just so green, isn't he, this bloke? Like, he just looks at everything, yet he obviously can run. I mean, we're only just entering the back straight the first time right at the minute, but he can definitely run, can't he?
Yeah, there's no doubt he's got a good engine there. And as you said, sort of most wins apart from the past couple, he's probably only won by half length and sort of looked a little bit dopey and done what he had to. And the last couple he's sort of drawn away and still won by 10 or 13 metres the other night. But still switching off. But, he at least he's starting to run away and learn what it's about, but he's still switching off. So, the day that he does pick it up and has something draw alongside him, I'm sure that there's going to be a few more gears there. And racing in these, I know it sounds silly racing the older horses being a 2-year-old, but he'd obviously be a 3-year-old in normal circumstances now. So, but it is sort of seasoning him a lot more to the racing with these older horses, even though he's winning probably more impressively. He's had to do things a lot more different. His first one at Ballarat, he had a few come up early and look him in the eye and really put the pressure on. And then the other night, they all brushed forward inside him and made us go back and then circle mid-race. So these sort of races, are probably going to condition him a lot better for when we get to the better races in November.
I was going to ask that from a training point of view. We've just got you, Mick. You just got about your last 200 metres here to go, and you really ask him. He wobbles off the fence like he's just that big and green, like he wears spreaders and the like. But from a trainer's point of view, because I think you're as good a trainer as you are a driver, and that, do you find it easier right at the minute, knowing you've got a little bit extra time up your sleeve, probably for these bigger races, or is it a bit of a challenge that you've got to get him right so early in the season? If effectively, like if COVID hadn't have hit, we would have been started the new season. Is it a bit of a challenge the other way?
For this horse, it hasn't been a challenge, because if COVID hadn't hit, he wouldn't have been in the APG and the size. He may have raced in the size, but he wouldn't have been ready like he is now. He's 16 1 hands and a big lump of a lad, like you said. So the extra time's actually done this horse really well. So, and even, through the break, I had the horses up and running, and unfortunately Soho Bollinger went amiss and he's out for a few months. But the other horses that we gave a break, Soho Almazi, she went to the paddock and came back, sent her up to Sydney a week ago and won really impressive today. And she's a big filly too. So, yeah, they were up and running early, but I think the Timeway's actually done them really well. And like I said to you the other day, Bollinger, although he's probably one of the most raced 2-year-olds of the season, he's had 6 starts, where, we get to this time of year and most of the 2-year-olds have had 14, 15 starts. So,
yep.
Yeah, I think it's only a benefit, if anything.
A benefit for the longevity. I think it's going to be great next season once it's a little bit more structured. I mean, this year's a bonus for everyone getting those extra 4 months, but I think going forward the racing product is going to be really, really will be better for it. A couple of the other horses, mate, I did want to tap onto, and I'm just going to start the video of No Leader, but it was more your mindset around Bollinger for the whole night. But Soho No Leader, her runs, I suppose if you look at her runs necessarily on paper, they're not sensational, but you're just still having a little bit of trouble. You're actually training this horse, to me, by the looks. You come out of the gate tonight, the other night in the Soho Lanarkai race, but it's sort of a little bit against your own wish. And then right about now, you can see that Jody's not going to be punching up underneath you with Amelia Rose, and you elect to go behind the leader. A horse that can over-race and can choke down. Was that a bit of a risk, mate, that you decide, calculated risk that you decide to take? Or is that as a trainer just trying to condition her to later on when you're going to have to do some things?
Probably as a trainer. Like, as you said, bigger form, this time in probably doesn't look that great. At Bendigo, I ran last, but I had a lap for the horse. If I've got a gap, I'll win. And even at Ballarat, she came 3 wide solo, and got pushed around on the bend and still ran the second quickest half of the race. I think she ran home in 54.8 and ran ninth. So she hasn't been going bad. And even the other night, I probably could have came off into the breeze at the 800 and left Amelia Rose 3 wide and made it work. But her last run in Sydney there, we were brushing her off the gate. She's always been a filly that's over-raced a lot, so she's never really seen the 2,200 metres out. So I've really worked hard this preparation on trying to get her to settle and run her races out. So, I came out the gate half-assed, as you said, the first 50, and then the gap opened up, so I had to sort of ask her to go and get into that spot. And, and that's the reason why I stayed there. We really are trying to teach her to be more of a racehorse, and because we do believe that she does have the ability and the speed to really compete in the Sire Stakes in November if we can get her to race properly. And she's already a Group 1 winner. We know she's got the talent there, but she just hasn't put it all together with her manners. So we've been working really hard on that.
Yeah, and I think that shows. And she presents I think she looks better. I thought she looked great at Bendigo anyway, although I didn't get a good chance to see her because it was another very, very wet night. But I looked at her the overnight and I thought she's nearly there. And then just watching that race, I thought, no, you're still not Mickey Mouse happy with her. I don't think you're unhappy with her, but there's still a little ways to go by the way you're driving her, I think, and presenting her.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I think body weight is probably the happiest we've been with her. It's the biggest she's ever been. We've really struggled to keep weight on her because she does over-race and get herself worked up. And, Jen's got her diet really well at the moment. She looks fantastic, but she still hasn't really cleaned up in the coat and that like a few of the others have. So I think another couple of runs and get her manners right and get her to run that 2,200 metres out and she's going to be really around the mark and she'll win one soon.
Absolutely. I thought she was really, really good. One of the other runners of yours on the night is A Fair Old Dance, son of a rock and roll dance. He was only second run for about an 8-month spell, I think it was, if I'm correct, off the top of my head, Mick. I should have probably had it in front of me. You'll correct me, though. This race was an interesting race, so the speed was well on early. Ryan and James Herbertson had a fair old speed burn. Tactically wise, then this became a race of tactics, didn't it? In a way, the way the race was panned out.
Yeah, it did, and it to be honest, it probably brought my bloke undone a little bit because, as you said, he was second up for the 8 months, and he is a fat little fellow, and he takes a few runs to really harden up. And when you come back into that 80 rated grade off such a long break, especially being a dumpy little fellow like A Fair Old Dance is, it takes quite a few runs to get yourself up to the mark. So that early burn really, even though it looked like I got the run of the race, it didn't really suit him. And we were there to win on the bend, but fitness gave out. Probably the last 100. Yeah, although he wasn't beaten far, and he pulled up really big. So he's probably going to take another run in that grade to really come up to the mark. But one thing I can take out of that is, as a trainer, is he still hasn't been that far away. So when he does get his fitness up to scratch, he's a bit like Soho in the leader. He'll win one soon, but it has taken him quite a while to come up to the mark.
The interesting thing, though, like as I said, this is talking tactics and just try and get into the mindset of how a driver is. We're just entering the back straight. So, in theory, you're going to pull out at 3 deep at some stage. You're on the back of James Herbertson, who'd done a lot of work, but he's on an Emma Stewart trained horse. They stick on. So, on paper, or like it rolling through your head, I'd be interested in how you think you're going to pull out 3 deep at the most at some stage, and then all of a sudden, Rock and Roll Eyes runs off the fence. Duff goes up underneath. So then you've got to elect to go 4 deep on the back of this horse. It's done a power of work going in and around the first turn, and then Kez gets going. You probably get you going that little bit earlier. That whole race changed complexion in that last 500-600 metres, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And as you said, I really wanted to wait until we straightened up. I didn't want to get going that early. And when that happened, that shuffled around and we're getting pushed wider. And Karen was obviously travelling well because she came off my wheel and wanted to get going. So it forced me to go a bit earlier. But I just knew with that early burn, a feral dance normally travels up on the bit really well. And I just had to tap him up around the bend. Although I knew he would find something when I pulled out, but I just knew that I wasn't travelling well enough to go just yet. And that, that's that early sectionals and that when you're fresh and underdone, even though that you're behind them and not doing the work, it still takes something out of you. So, so probably he'll benefit a lot from it. But if I could have waited, until we straightened, he probably would have let down a little bit better for me.
It's one of those things, I think, a lot of people see the sectionals and they say, oh, this race is made for the swoopers. But I think sometimes you just got to look at how the swoopers like yourself and even Terry Rama possibly looked a little bit disappointing that you couldn't get past Rock and Roll Eyes. But I just think that from the 600 to the 400 really, not only did, like Kez is probably thinking, well, I've just got to get Mick going 3 deep in a minute and then I'll just be pulling 4 deep. Instead, she's coming around 5 and 6 deep around that home turn, and that's probably why she tried to get going that little bit earlier as well, because all of a sudden she's thinking, geez, I'm going to be a long way back here very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. And let's not forget, Rock and Roll Eyes led a few weeks ago and held Reactor Now out at Shepparton, and Reactor Now really put it to it down the back, and it looked like it was gone, and it still kicked on and ran third. That's how Reactor Now goes. He's really tough. So, I think the couple of young fellas up the front when Reactor Now came off the bit thought he was gone when he never is. And that's why I was really wanted to wait as long as I could, because I knew if I got up beside Rock and Roll Eyes, I knew if I got up beside him too early, when it gets to a dogfight, that's what Rock and Roll Eyes love. So, and it played into his hands, and that's why he won the race.
Absolutely. Mickey, the rest of your horses, they're going good. You'd have to be really happy with the way things are going. You'd have to be excited about, I thought you just left me, the next basically 4 months. I would imagine you've got to be pretty excited. How did you go today in New South Wales as well? Obviously one win.
Yeah, Soho Bollinger had her first run up there, so her first run back from a spell. So we got her ready here and gave her a trial and sent her up to Craig Cross and Luke McCarthy up there to look after her for the New South Wales Breeders' Challenge. And she won by 15 or 16 metres and ran a really slick time in 1:52 and looked really sharp. So she's a filly that we've had a high opinion of all the way through, and really, really excited to see her progress through the Breeders' Challenge. Disappointing that we can't train her herself, but at the same time, like I said to you a couple of weeks ago, we'll be cheering her like she's our own, and she's owned by Rob Watson, who's a loyal supporter of ours. So hopefully she can get the job done up there and come back and do the same for us in a Breeders' Crown and give us a thrill going forward anyway. But she's a smart filly.
What about Barman? Has he raced up there yet or not?
Barman down, he's trialling on Wednesday. So today was only a fillies race, so he'll trial on Wednesday. And they're really happy with him too. He settled in really well, and so not too sure what the plan is. Maybe he might have a start next week or go straight into the semi-finals. But the heats before the. Hopefully, he makes the semi-finals. He might make a full in. But he's an exciting horse. He's extremely fast, and he trialled against the older horses before he went up and with Stingray Tar, and he came out one really impressive. So I'm sure he'll acquit himself really well.
Mickey, I reckon you've got a great team of horses. Hopefully I might be able to do a couple more of these, but thank you very much for your insight into Saturday night. It was a trying night for everyone, but I think Soho Bollinger, he's left me again. He doesn't like talking to me. He might have left me completely. No, he's back. Soho Bollinger, I think, it's possibly, you got a horse like Ride High competing on the night, but I think people should be just sitting back and having a look at he's still a 2-year-old officially now. He's still classed as a 2-year-old taking on the old horses, and just so green and raw. I think the future looks great for harness racing when you've got horses like him that hardly get a mention on the night like it was. So Thank you very much, mate, for your time.
Nah, thank you. And then, look, to be honest, with the change of seasons, I'm really looking forward to it because I think going forward, the 2-year-olds are going to be much better off for it. And, you know, who knows, we could be sitting here in 4 years' time and we've got that many open class stars because we looked after them early. It could be a blessing in disguise.
Mick Stanley, thank you very much. This has been Talking Tactics. Thanks very much, Mick.
Cheers, Paulie.